Okay, so let's dive into something that, I think it's close to home for a lot of us, and that's homelessness in America.
Hmm.
I know you've been doing a lot of research on ways to help, and you shared some really interesting materials with me. One is this plan, and it's called Creating a Comprehensive Approach to Prevent and Stop Homelessness. And the other is this podcast script, and it's for an organization, and it's called NC God EIN. See, their tagline is Investing in Our Future Together.
Yeah, and even just those titles kind of highlight like the two sides of this issue we constantly see, which is, we need those practical solutions, right? But we also need that human element, that call for compassion and that community support.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, how do we walk that line between figuring out those actionable steps we can take, but then also remembering to change hearts and minds along the way, right?
Absolute.
And speaking of those action steps, that NC Go I INC script, it really digs into some interesting approaches.
Mm.
What really stuck with me was this idea of investing in solutions, not just donating to the problem.
Yeah.
Did you get that sense from it?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's subtle, but it's such a powerful shift in language, right? Because if you think
Hmm.
about it, when you say donating, that implies kind of a temporary fix, right? But when you say investing, that suggests a commitment to something way more long term, something way more sustainable.
For sure.
And that's where this gets really, really interesting because the script actually breaks down what that investment looks like. And it goes way beyond just like providing temporary shelter.
Right. And before we even get to solutions, the script does something I think really, really crucial. And that is it challenges our perceptions of what homelessness even looks like, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not always someone who is sleeping on a park bench,
Right.
right?
Exactly. And that's one of the first things that the script really emphasizes is this like often invisible face of homelessness, right? Because we're talking about families that are like right on the verge of eviction or people who are battling some really, really difficult mental health challenges, maybe struggling with addiction, and they might be couch surfing or living in their cars. Like these are the faces of homelessness that often get overlooked. And this is where data collection, things like the point in time counts, which, those are like these one night snapshots of homelessness in a community and surveys, those can really help illuminate just how big of a problem this is.
Which makes total sense.
Right.
You can't really solve a problem that you don't fully grasp.
Exactly.
The part that really resonated with me, though, was the script's like flat out rejection of those band-aid solutions. They're calling for something so much deeper, something that actually gets to the root causes of this.
Right. And that's where those long-term solutions really come in. And we're talking about things like permanent supportive housing, which not only gives someone a stable place to live, but it also gives them those wraparound services. Like we're talking job training, mental health counseling, addiction, recovery support, things like that.
Wow.
And these are really carefully tailored to each person's needs, which is so important. It helps them to actually rebuild their lives, not just get back on their feet for a moment.
Yeah, it's like that old saying, like, give a man a fish, he eats for a day, but teach a man to fish.
He eats for a lifetime. And that's the whole idea behind these wraparound services. It's all about giving people the tools, giving them that support they need to break free from this cycle of homelessness for good. It's not just about putting a roof over their head. It's about really addressing those underlying issues that often lead to homelessness in the first place.
And that kind of support, that sense of someone really having your back, that can be really powerful.
Totally.
That NC Kaide INC script, though, it goes even a step further.
Yeah.
It challenges this whole idea of like rugged individualism,
Yeah.
that every man for himself mentality that we see sometimes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's like they're saying, look, when we put our own individual needs above everything else, it actually makes us more vulnerable as a community.
Yeah, it's like we're all in this together, right?
Exactly. We all need that safety net at some point.
At some point, yeah, for sure.
None of us are immune to life, throwing those curveballs.
Exactly.
And this is where I think that second source you share, that comprehensive plan, it ties in so perfectly.
Okay.
Because it really focuses on the power of partnerships, community partnerships, when it comes to tackling this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did that stand out to you too?
Oh, absolutely. It's like this recognition that no single organization, no single person for that matter, can solve this problem alone.
Right.
You need those nonprofits, you need government agencies, you need businesses, you even need everyday people all working together to create a safety net that's actually effective.
Yeah, it's like this massive group project, right?
Totally, yeah.
Where everyone has a role to play.
Yeah.
And this plan, it actually gets really, really specific. It talks about volunteer programs, community fundraising events, even just raising awareness about these issues. It's about getting a community to put its resources together and really tap into that compassion we all have.
Yeah. And what I thought was really interesting was the focus on data in all of this, using data to drive our strategies.
Huh.
It's not enough to just throw resources at the problem. We have to be smart about it.
Yeah.
We have to measure how effective we're being and make sure we're using those resources the right way.
Right. What gets measured gets managed, or however that saying goes.
Exactly.
And both of these sources really emphasize this idea of accountability.
Yeah, for sure.
It's great to have all these programs and these great ideas, but how do we know if they're actually working?
Right. And that's where those key performance indicators come in, those KPIs.
The KPIs, right?
Yeah, they're those measurable goals that we can use to track our progress and make sure we're actually getting the outcomes we want.
Okay.
So, for example, are we seeing an increase in housing stability rates? Are people able to find jobs and support themselves? Those are the kinds of things we can measure.
So it's not just about getting people off the street for a little bit. It's about giving them what they need so they can stay off the streets.
Exactly.
And that takes a much bigger, more comprehensive approach.
Absolutely. And here's where I think it gets really interesting. Both sources talk about how important it is to constantly be assessing and adapting what we're doing.
Okay. How so?
Well, they basically say that homelessness is not a static thing. It's constantly evolving. So the way we address it has to evolve too.
So we've talked about challenging our perceptions of what homelessness is, about really investing in those long-term solutions instead of those Band-Aid fixes, about how important those community partnerships are, and of course about using data to make sure what we're doing is actually working.
It's a lot to think about.
It is, but it feels like there's this common thread that kind of runs through all of it.
Yeah, what do you think that is?
For me, it's this real emphasis on being proactive, on preventing homelessness in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just about reacting after someone ends up on the streets.
Right.
It's about creating a society where that's less likely to happen to begin with.
Right, like building that safety net before people even realize they need it.
Exactly.
And that takes a huge shift in how we think about homelessness as a whole, doesn't it?
It really does, yeah. We have to stop thinking about it as this individual failing and start looking at all those systemic factors, the things that really contribute to it, like the lack of affordable housing, the lack of access to mental health care and job training, things like that.
And that's where that idea of investing in solutions, I think, becomes even more powerful, right?
For sure.
It's not just about investing in programs. It's about investing in a society that's more just, more equitable, more compassionate. A society that actually supports all of its members.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, addressing homelessness isn't just about helping those who are experiencing it. It's about building stronger communities for all of us.
This has been a really thought-provoking deep dive, I have to say.
Because, yeah.
We've covered so much, but I think one thing is clear. There's no single solution to this problem.
Nope. It's way too complex for that.
It is, and that's why those adaptive strategies, the ones that both of the sources talked about, are so crucial.
Yeah, because homelessness changes over time.
Exactly.
So the way we address it has to change, too.
It does.
Yeah.
It's about constantly learning and being willing to adjust our approach.
And staying engaged, right. We can't just learn about this and then forget about it.
Absolutely, and that's what I want to leave our listeners with today. What can you do right here in your own community to be a part of the solution? Whether it's volunteering your time, donating to an organization that's doing good work, or just talking to your friends and family to raise awareness about these issues, every single action, even if it seems small, can make a huge difference. Ending homelessness is a marathon, not a sprint, but it's a marathon we can run together.